Hey folks, Pro Libertate, thanks again for watching. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about art and good art versus bad art and people's ability to distinguish these things, right? So most of us are probably familiar with the story of the emperor's clothes, right? So the way the story basically goes is, so there's an emperor and he wants a new outfit, and he doesn't want just a plain old, you know, new outfit like everybody else has. He wants something exquisite, exotic, something totally new and foreign. And so he eventually hires these seamstresses or, tailors, and they create him a new outfit, right? And as the emperor comes in and checks on it, he sees them working at their spinning wheels, but to the naked eye, there's nothing there, right? But they're acting like they're, working the fabric, pulling the strings and all that, sewing, all these sorts of things, right? So they give the appearance of working, but it appears that there's nothing there. And the trick becomes, the only people who can see this fabric, because it is so fine, it is so exquisite, so exotic, are those with the trained eye. And so the king, not wanting to look like a rube, is like, yes, obviously, I see it now, right? So nobody wants to come off like an idiot, right? And as the story progresses, eventually, the garment's done, and the king or the emperor wears it, and as he's wearing it, he's out in the streets, and the populace has been duped by this sort of rhetoric as well. See, this is a very fine cloth. It's so fine that only the most trained and discerning eye can see it. That's how fine this cloth is. And so everybody wants to act like they're seeing something that's not there. In reality, as the emperor is marching down the street, he's butt naked, right? And it takes a young child who hasn't bought into the deception to just state the obvious. The guy's walking around butt naked, right? And so it's a humorous story, but the obvious message there is that we can buy into a lie in order to appear as though we have a discerning taste, right? We have a discerning palate, that we understand art. This is the great deception of modern art, really. Namely that just this garbage that these artists make, we act like it's art because we don't want to appear as though we're rubes and we don't understand art. Obviously, a lot of thought went into that square painted on the canvas, and there's a deep meaning there, and it's saying something profound about the world around us. I mean, nobody knows what that is, but there's a message there, and we don't want to act like we're missing the message. We want to join in the charade. And so that's how these artistic deceptions work. It's the emperor's clothes, really, right? And so you get all sorts of stupid art displays. There's one really popular one, the unmade bed, right? And so basically, this was just a bed that wasn't made, had like a plate next to it on the floor with like pizza crusts or something, some soda cans next to the bed. And this was put in an art gallery, and it was sitting there as a display. Other exhibits that involve just trash laying all over the floor, like garbage cans and stuff. And the funny thing is the janitor cleaning up at the night, he thought it was just garbage, and so some of these exhibits have been whisked away by a dutiful janitor trying to do his job and rightly identified the so-called art as garbage. And so this is what's gone on a lot in art. And it takes somebody like the child to walk in, or the janitor really, and say, that's garbage. And so with art, often the phrase is used, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Art is purely subjective. I'm here to say that it's not. there is good art and there is bad art. And we need to not surrender objectivity in these areas. There is a degree of subjectivity. That is true. So just thinking about ice cream, for example. So say somebody likes chocolate ice cream, and my preferred ice cream is vanilla, right? I can't go up to the guy who likes chocolate, that's his favorite flavor, and say, you're wrong, right? That's just his preference. So we can talk about preferences, and you can't say somebody's preference is wrong. However, I could make a case for why a particular ice cream is better, superior to another. Say, for instance, this ice cream was made of rare ingredients. The process by which it was made takes a lot of work. And it has to be served at just a specific temperature for all the flavors to come out. And all these things combine to, make this specific wonderful ice cream, right? This is all hypothetical. But one could easily say that that's superior to soft serve ice cream from Dairy Queen, right? Which is just comes out of an extruder. It's got, fake, vanilla flavor or whatever, right? That's obviously superior because of the things I listed. The ingredients, the process in which it is made, and the steps needed to properly serve it to people, right? Which were fulfilled. So for those reasons, this is a superior form of ice cream to that. Okay? So we're beyond preferences at that point. We're now into objective standards. And so that's something as simple as food, right? This is how food shows can even do what they do. There's objective standards and criteria that can be met, right? And the same applies to art. And I have The Last Jedi pulled up here because I think this is a perfect Emperor's Clothes sort of scenario. The Last Jedi has been harped on for almost 2 years now. And this is a movie that so many people just absolutely hated. But yet, as we look here at the Rotten Tomatoes page, we see that the critics loved. 91% of the critics gave this a thumbs up. Good movie. Strong movie. Right? So those are like the king's court saying, your new clothes look great, Emperor. These are great clothes. Obviously of the finest silks and garments from, the most exotic lands, right? That's what those guys are. That's the king's the emperor's advisors telling him, good job, wonderful outfit, even though he's standing there butt naked. Over here we see the audience score. Over 200,000 people, right? Almost 250,000 people have reviewed the movie, and they thought just the opposite. They're more like the boy in the story. They're like the boy saying, yeah, the emperor's butt naked. I don't care what all you adults playing your little game are saying. Emperor's naked. And this is absolutely the case. And you see this time and time again. Another inverse example was the recent Dave Chappelle special on Netflix, where the critics are all thumbs down, this is awful, don't bother watching, where the audience was all, this is really good stuff. He toppled a number of sacred cows, and we respect him for that. So, as I was saying, though, Last Jedi, it really is an Emperor's New Clothes kind of litmus test, really. And for myself, I've used it several times when discussing art and story, particularly with people. I remember one particular time I met a guy at a party, and we got to talking, and he was the kind of guy who more than once mentioned in casual conversation that he was a writer, right? And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, what kind of writer is this guy exactly, right? And a good way to gauge somebody is to ask them about particular stories that are kind of, divisive. And I could think of nothing better than to ask him about The Last Jedi. This is a Ravenclaw mug from a good story, the Harry Potter stories. But so I asked him about The Last Jedi. And I prefaced my question by saying, look, how you answer this question will determine what I think about your ability to discern good story and bad story. Okay, he said. And I asked him, what did you think about The Last Jedi? And he looks at me, he's like, oh, it was so good. It was such a good movie. And I was like, that's it. Right there, I wash my hands of this guy. Obviously, I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't understand story. Because The Last Jedi was objectively a horrible movie in every conceivable way possible. There are tons of videos reviewing the movie, going into all the reasons why it was terrible. And so I get into conversation with this guy. I'm like, why did you think it was a good movie? And I start pointing out the flaws in it. He has no defense for these things, right? I mean, one was like the bombs in space. This is just absurd, right? I'm like, so how do bombs work in space, by the way? He says, well, maybe they had, magnetism, and so they were magnetically attracted to the destroyers that they were bombing. Like, yeah, but the ship they were falling from was also made out of metal. So that doesn't work. And plus, the movie never said that. So you can't add stuff that the movie didn't say. Right? The movie can't defend itself. You can't come up with these ad hoc rescues. But the biggest thing for me was the destruction of Luke Skywalker. And how his character was absolutely destroyed by this movie. It was simply destroyed. This movie actually made me realize how much I really liked the character of Luke Skywalker, because to see it destroyed was really obnoxious. And so it changed the character arc and the story arc of Luke Skywalker from one of a hero to one of a tragedy. So in the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker starts off, he's a young, adventurous boy, and he gets thrust into this adventure, into a world he doesn't quite understand, but he's fighting for the good cause. He's able to blow up the Death Star. In the next movie, his character grows even further as he faces Darth Vader, and he receives the blow of news, realizing that Darth Vader didn't kill his father. Darth Vader actually is his father. And so now his character has to wrestle with this news and how to fight evil when evil is actually your family. And so he has room to grow. And in the final movie, Return of the Jedi, Luke faces Vader. But he doesn't face him through mortal combat. He faces him by prying the good out of Vader, even to the point of willing to sacrifice his own life to find the good in his father. It's a wonderful story, a wonderful character arc, and ultimately he succeeds. Vader, at the end, returns to the good side. Luke succeeds in finding the good that was buried inside of that dark shell of Darth Vader. It's beautiful. The Last Jedi undoes all of that. Because when we find Luke in The Last Jedi, he's this disheveled, nihilistic hermit living off of alien boob juice. And he wants nothing to do with the fight. He wants nothing to do with the Force. He's given up. So this guy who wouldn't give up on his own father and found the good in him, he gives up. And he ends up dying that way, basically. So he has like this fake showdown at the end with Kylo Ren, but it's not really even a showdown. right? He wasn't even really there. He was just like a hologram or a force projection, and then he dies of a force stroke or something. And they give him that ending with the two suns, like he's on Tatooine, but it's not Tatooine. It's silly. And his character was just simply destroyed. There's no really getting around that. And the guys, like this gentleman I was talking with, he tried to defend it all. And it's just amazing. It's like somebody defending the Emperor's clothes. And you're like the child sitting there saying, he's butt naked. Everybody can see his butt cheeks. He looks like a friggin' fool. But then here's the guy, no. Actually, this is a really nice clothing. You gotta understand that all the work. Didn't you see the symbolism of the two suns at the end? That was a great closing to the story of Luke. Didn't you understand? He didn't actually give up on the fight. He went there and he saved the rebellion by, force projecting. And so you come up with all this stuff, and it's like, no. He didn't actually fight. He didn't, and then he just dies. It's so bizarre. And to hear these defenses. But they ring just as hollow and silly as the defense of the Emperor's clothes. So, art can be assessed objectively. And it's objectively bad to take a hero and reduce them to a nihilistic, just disheveled hermit. That's bad. That's not a hero anymore. That's a broken man. And this is going to become more and more normal. Especially like in the MCU. I know a lot of us love those stories. Be prepared for a lot more broken heroes. Be prepared for a lot more strong, empowered female leads that don't need no man, and that are overpowered, and that can beat anybody with the flick of a wrist. Like Rey, like Captain Marvel. Rey doesn't need any training. Captain Marvel don't need no training. They don't need any character growth. They're already perfect, right? They don't need nothing. They don't need no man. Okay? So it's that sort of a thing. And be prepared for a lot more of that. Because there are people writing these movies, creating this art, that want to destroy the idea of a hero. Ultimately, why the Marvel movies in particular were so successful is that they were all echoes of the true story. They were all echoes of the story of Christ and the church. Someone summarized the Bible. If you could summarize the Bible in one sentence, it would be, kill the dragon, get the girl. Right? And that's what Jesus does. He defeats the dragon on the cross. He rises again, and he gets the girl, the church. Right? And the hero story is quite simple. It's a person with great strength, great power, who takes on the responsibility to defend those around him, even if it costs their own life, right? That's the basic hero story. Christ, he's the king of the universe, he's the creator, and yet he comes into the world, takes on the role of a servant, and he lays his life down for those around him. Same thing was true of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor in the original movies. That's why these stories appeal to people. It's not because they're childish and infantile or anything like that. I hear a lot of people who don't understand these stories criticize them, and people who enjoy them, saying, what's with all these adults that like these comic book movies? They're cartoon characters. That's silly. It's prolonged childhood. That's not the case at all. They're good stories. They're stories that echo the ultimate story. Right? So take Tony Stark, Iron Man. He starts off with his character as a selfish playboy. He's got all the money in the world. He can do anything he wants. He can have anything he wants. And he can boss around anybody he wants. He's on top of the world. And he grows out of that. Ultimately, he settles down with Pepper Potts. He gets married. And in the end, he's willing to lay his life down that others might live. It's a beautiful story. And it's the case with all the superheroes. So that's why these stories appeal to people. That's why they are good stories. They ultimately echo the true story. And in the true story, the emperor is wearing clothes. The emperor is not naked. He's fully clothed. His garments are white. They're beautiful. And he beckons everybody to come and join him. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this stuff. And take care.